Hi, welcome to the show. Welcome to State of the Arts. My name is Mick. I am your host. Look, this is one of my favorite places in London, Ontario. You know what place I'm at right now. This is the old McCormick building on Dundas. It is a shadow of its former self. It was built in 1913. It's a long time ago at this point. It has been since torn down and is starting to fall apart. But if you look closer, if you look a little closer at the screen, there's some graffiti and some work there. And I love graffiti. It is one of the more pure forms of art form as far as I'm concerned. It is made by people who have something to say. There's a reason that art is on that wall and why they chose to, well, let's be honest, break the law and put something on that wall. There's something to it, and there's partially why I love art in all its forms, but this is one of my favorite. Welcome to the show. This week we have Andrew Kosty on, and we're going to talk to him about being a gig player and how he puts food on the table from week to week. He has to pay the bills, and as an artist, that does present its own challenges. So here we are. Welcome to State of the Arts. My name is Mick. Let's get on to the show. Andrew, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. I'm doing good. How are you doing, man?
I'm fantastic. Fantastic. I'm excited. I've got this ridiculous setup here.
I like it.
It looks good, right? We're bright. Everybody can see our face.
I was going to say, they can see us.
That's right.
I got 3 different camera angles.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
You got to cheat to the right camera.
That's right. Yeah.
Anyways, that's right. So look, welcome back to the show. We did the podcast before. It was a lot of fun. We talked about a lot of stuff.
We did.
Remind our new viewers who you are.
I am Andrew Kosty. I don't even know. I'm a double bassist, I guess, but above that, just a musician.
Look, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
That alone is something that why I'm doing the show.
Yeah, you don't synthesize your whole identity down to your instrument. But,
right. Yeah. Who are you? I'm not.
Yeah.
Continue. I'll stop interrupting.
That's funny. I'm a guy here. I live in London, Ontario. I grew up in Windsor, and I think music and the arts sort of has brought me to so many different places, I guess. So it's hard to synthesize exactly what I am, but I'm just a guy. Just a guy who plays bass, man.
That's right. Well, look, since I've known you about 2 years now.
Yeah.
Give or take. And you are a skill acquisition person.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I identify heavily with that.
Just acquiring different things, different skills.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Just learning new things and being kind of... So yeah, it's hard to define yourself when you're not just one thing,
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. Like, I guess why I had so much trouble with the first question is, like, that's funny, I had a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and he's like, are you, he's like, if you had to define yourself, what is it? And I hate that question just because it's like, are you, I hate looking at it like it's one thing. And I get it. He was asking from a business perspective, like, how do you market yourself, right? Like, what makes you marketable? And I get that, but like really when you're trying to define yourself, it's just like, I'm Andrew. Like I'm a conglomerate of a bunch of different things, right?
Yeah, we talk about the elevator pitch. I've always been big on the elevator pitch. That 30 seconds, you got 30 seconds in an elevator to pitch whatever it is, and I can't do that. I don't have one.
Yeah, neither do I.
It's tough.
It's terrible, man. Yeah. I'm terrible at
it. Because I'm not anything. I've done a lot of things, but I don't have a calling. I don't have a...
it's exactly how I feel, man.
With that in mind, being an artist is very difficult. It's not the old days where you would get a mentor, not a mentor, but somebody who would oversee and just hire you, and you would live in their home and you would create music for them. And it was just, your needs were taken care of, but we don't do that anymore, obviously.
No.
So we have to kind of make our own and hustle. There's a hustle. It's
sure.
You got to decide if it's a side hustle or if you decide if it's your hustle.
Yeah, is it your vocation or your avocation?
So gig life, man. So look, I'm not getting paid here today. That's one of my almost one of my catchphrases. I'm not getting paid doing this thing.
I don't get paid for this.
I do this because I want to do it, and it makes me excited, and I love talking to people, and I've culminated it into something. But I also have a job. Mm-hmm. I have a job that keeps me from doing this all the time, right?
Yeah.
So look, you're young, you're hip, you're cool, you've got a niche instrument to a certain extent.
Yeah, I'm hip, I'm cool.
That's right. Yeah. See, knows what camera to hit and everything. But you have an opportunity to be just and be great at it, because I know you are particularly very good at your instrument. But as I said earlier, you're kind of a skill acquisition person, so you don't want to be pigeonholed. So how do you balance all that together? Like, how do you bring that, pay the bills, and make it work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, you know, when you're a musician, I think there's a sort of an expectation, if you're not sort of wrapped up in the arts world, that you know you just play all the time, and then and that's how you make your living. And for some people, that's true. But I think before I even sort of dive down that hole, it's important to stress that like that's a lifestyle for a very specific kind of individual.
Oh, yeah.
Like I think when you're young and you're looking at like, you know, playing music for a living, that's exactly it. You look at it and you think, okay, well, I'm just going to play music all the time. I'm just going to gig, and as much as that is a beautiful thing, eventually, at least for me, I hit a point where it was like, I don't know if I can just play all the time. Like, as much as I am wrapped up, you know, in my instrument and I like playing, and I would enjoy that more than anything. And sometimes I do, you know, just enjoy playing. It is a lot of work, and I think that gets overlooked. So before, you know, you even dive down the hole, if this is possible, it's like you have to be the right individual to do that.
Oh, God,
And I think a lot of people don't figure that out, or they don't ask themselves that, or are afraid to ask themselves that because they get too far down the road, and they, you know, and that's a whole other thing. But once you sort of figure out, if you can, God willing, figure out which one it is, right? If you want to do full time or you want to do it part time, then it's then your world is, you know, it's completely different. And if you want to play full time, like I got a friend here in London, Jeremy Fox. He's a full-time, you know, teaches and sings and plays, and he's playing. Like I just saw his schedule this morning on Instagram. He's got like 18 shows in July, and I'm just, you know, that's amazing, right? Yeah, he's amazing. Like he's, you know, incredible. And that's that kind of individual, right? He's very assertive, and you have to go out there and you're, you know, you're making your life sort of that way, and you're very clear on how you negotiate and how you get things done. And it's more of a personality thing than it is a hard work. I think a lot of people look at that and they go, well, you know, like he just works hard. It's like he works extremely hard, but like you also got to be cut out for that, right? And
I can work hard for about 20 minutes.
Exactly, right? I got 20 minutes in the tank, and then I need a cup of coffee or something. So that, you know, those personality things I think almost lend themselves more to that decision. And what's hard about that, I hate saying that decision because it changes seasonally too. There's some seasons you wake up and you're like, I could do this all the time. And there's other times you wake up and you're like, I don't want to do that today, right? Or at least for me. So that would be, sort of the full-time.
Because at one point, again, I've known you for a little while now, and you had a little break there, and you decided that you were going to go off and go get into the trade. And I mean, again, not to maybe bring up some other stuff or whatever, but like you were back to playing again.
Yeah, exactly.
So what? Again, without getting into the details and minutia of it, but like, so where was your head kind of through that? Like,
well, that's a great liaison to the other half. But you don't do music full time, or you don't do your art full time, and it's your, you know, it's your hobby. For me, to get to that decision, it was a lot of it was a turmoil. Like when I say it now, if you're a viewer, you might think, well, this is a very point A to point B thing, and he just woke up one day and was like, well, I'm just going to do it part time. It's like, no, I decided that very recently, and it changes, right, all the time. But the process of getting there was tumultuous, right? There was a lot of things I had to consider, and that's, you know, and I, what is it about the journey? Is it about the destination?
Yes,
about the journey.
So
that whole journey of going through and deciding, you know, how I was going to kind of survive, really, is sort of the main, I don't want to say proprietor, the main sort of like push to figure out what it is I have to do, because if I'm going to do music part time, or, you know, I have to basically figure out a way to survive, right?
Yes.
Even if I am going to do it full time, either way, you got to figure out a way to survive. And as a bass player, it's tricky sometimes to just be gigging all the time, and to get those gigs and to sort of line that stuff up is a lot of work. So I was thinking, you know, this is right around 2020, right around COVID, right? So the pandemic was hitting, and I was getting some things lined up, and, you know, this is sort of just coming out of school, and I was getting some gigs lined up, and it looked like I was maybe going to be able to line up some full-time work. And then, you know, the world blew up, right? And everything blew up in my face, and it was like, okay, well, this isn't great, and I don't know about that, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to make a living just playing anymore.
Right.
And at the time, it was I think it was a hard headspace for a lot of people, but for me particularly, because I realized I had a lot of self-esteem attached to my playing. And then I had to figure out, like, okay, well, do I like playing, or do I like playing for other people? Like, how does this work, right?
Yeah, are you a performer?
Yeah.
Or is it,
And in that sort of gap or devoid of, like, what is it that I'm going to do, at least in Canada, I know it was different in other countries. In Ontario, I was like, well, I have to find a way to, to pay the bills, right? I got to find a way to survive, a way to pay the bills, and get things that I wanted in my life. So I looked at different careers, and my dad was really, supportive on a lot of things, but he was a huge help in sort of pushing me to be like, well, like, you're still young. This is a good time to make a decision. If you you make a wrong choice, whatever, right?
Recovery time.
You got to rebound, right? Yeah. So I was like, okay, and I looked into electrical. My grandfather actually was an electrician on my mom's side, and he was a really, really, both my grandparents actually, all sets of them are actually really bright people. But he's a very creative, like, kinesthetic guy.
Okay.
And I think that I read into that a bit too, because I'm pretty kinesthetic. I'm good with my hands, right? I like crafting things. Beyond very menial tasks, when it gets hard, I realize that it's very difficult.
Yes.
But so I joined the trades and became an electrical apprentice for about a year and a half, almost 2 years if you count the schooling. And it was awesome. It really was, like, sort of going into that. But that got real hard, right, to balance with playing, and that's one of those realities you got to deal with, right? So it's like when good opportunities come up, I had a really difficult time saying no to a lot of stuff, right? Especially because I think people say, it's just you're saying no to money into a gig, and it's like you're not really saying no to money. You're saying no to your peers. You're saying no to your friends who also make a living off of this, right?
It's a bigger circle.
It is,
absolutely.
And
future. Every time you say no, that's one fewer next time that somebody's going to give you a call.
That's right.
I get that.
And that's a crazy, I think, trap that musicians we can spiral down, or any art for that matter. Because if you constantly think that way, you take everything that comes your way, and sometimes it doesn't lead to anything, right? Like,
Oh yes, I have a book full of dreams.
Yeah,
they're all
random things.
Sometimes you hustle, and sometimes you can only generate what's available.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's not enough, and sometimes you got to move on.
Yeah, and it depends too on the community you decide to plant your roots in. Going back to sort of the beginning of the interview, where I said there's people who do this full time. They, like, the guys that I know who do that, my peers, they live in, like, New York, right, or LA. They live in a city where it's like you can wake up every day, walk down the street, and find people playing, right?
Yeah.
Or Nashville, or whatever.
Somebody's desperate for somebody.
Exactly. There's just the arts are prolific in those areas.
Yeah.
And not to bash London or anything, but when I decided to come to London, I knew it was because it was a double-edged sword. It was like, well, there's not a lot going on, but there's not a lot going on. Right. So you can make stuff happen. And that was great. And those skills, those tactile skills of learning how to put yourself together or figure out how you fit into a community, I think is really cool. And I actually really enjoy that process.
Yeah.
And like I said, when I think about some of my peers in London who play full time, right, they got those tactile skills down, right? They got it down to a science.
Yeah.
To me, that's really admirable.
Yeah, these are skills that you either, I don't know if you have them or if you acquire them or if you learn them or what the proper answer is. But there is definitely that subset. Like, there are some people that I know that went into theater very straight. They went to school, they did the thing, couldn't generate 3 or 4 credits on an IMDb page.
Yeah. Done. Yeah.
But other ones who they're direct peers, people that they worked with at the same time, push and always working. Yeah, those 3 things didn't work, but that fourth thing worked for them. So, anyways, all that to say, really, it's about that. Can you get back up after being hit and knocked down mentally, or however you want to put that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what's your will to get back up and do it again?
Rebound? Yeah. Well, for me, that's a great question, because you're right. I think some people are very fortunate to be able to get the snowball effect going, right? And they can go off and do these amazing things musically or artistically, whatever your trade is, or even outside the arts for that matter, like just any type of job, right? You can get connections to spiral. Yeah. But for me, it was really like removing myself from the identity that I just play music. And that's kind of circling back to the first question, right? What are you? What do you do?
Yeah.
Because, had you asked me earlier on, I was like, yeah, I'm a bass player and all I do is, play music and stuff. And that's fine, right? That's amazing for some people.
Absolutely. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Some people, some of my favorite musicians on the planet, are just people who play music.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like I had to, almost like it was a relief of pressure to be like, okay, well, I don't have to just play all the time, right? I have to market myself as I'm a bassist first, and start to look at these other things that I have around me, and really decide to pursue, greatness at whatever it is I'm doing, not even in music. And that sort of gets wrapped up in my philosophy of music that maybe we'll get to later. But that is like, once I was able to sort of be like, okay, well, I'm not just going to play music all the time. I'm going to do other things.
Yeah.
It actually made me a better player. It made me a better everything. And that helps me sleep at night too. Like I can, my life is a little bit more simple, and there's things that I like, that I still learn about every day. For instance, like I'll give an example. Like after this, I'll probably go home and attempt to cook raisin bread or something.
Nice.
Yeah, like something I've never done before. And for some people, they'd be like, I don't do it. I just go home and practice.
Soak the raisins a bit.
Yeah, I heard this. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Anyways.
But yeah. No,
that's the next cooking show.
Yeah, that's the cooking show. Stay tuned for that one. I'll give you a slice of my bread.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I have plans. Look, if you want to come back and have a live cooking, like you show us how to.
Oh yeah, no, I'll do. Yeah, can you use your kitchen?
Yeah.
Kitchen
Yeah, you know what? I think the kitchen would actually work.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Derailing the conversation for some fun. But, see, that's the thing. The notion of hats.
Yeah. Wearing different hats.
It depends on what I need to do. I have lots of hats. None of them particularly well made or sturdy, but I have a lot of different hats. I again, musical theater I've done, regular theater I've done.
Yeah.
So at a moment's notice, I got to be able to grab that hat and say, nope. I am an actor, or I am a host of a television show.
Yeah, I was going to say you got all this.
How many hats do you think you juggle on a regular
gosh,
basis?
see, that's what's hard because I almost don't even want to think about it. I think it's just easier just to say I'm Andrew, right? I can do all these things.
That is a valid answer, sir.
I think one of the easiest ones for me to really sort of like put down what it is I do. I like to look at like what I can do. Maybe this is a bit of a cliche, but like how I am with the people around me or my relationships is really important.
Yeah.
And that's almost to me is more important than like these other crafts that I do, because the hats commingle with what I do. Like for instance, when I think of my relationship, right? Like, Kelsey might be real busy. She's a teacher for all the people listening, a music teacher. She might be real busy, so like it's on me to put dinner together and things like that.
Sure,
so I've got the hat on, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of these hats, I guess we're talking about, are also things that I learned through different jobs when I was like in school.
Yeah.
I know we weren't going to talk about school too much, but
No.
I was just talking to Kelsey about this the other day. Like some of the skills I use every day are the ones that I learned working a job in school. So it wasn't actually the school itself, right? Like school was like, okay, I'll teach you how to play music, but like I worked at a diner, I worked in construction for a while, like I was a laborer. I just did a bunch of different random jobs, right? And all those things, those like tactile skills, I use them every day. I know how to cook. I keep my, I got knife skills. I keep my kitchen clean. And so those hats, those little things, those are the ones that like allow me to get through the day without any problems.
Well, and again, put food on your table, which will allow you to then go out on a Friday night and put your musician hat on, and then
I can
maybe make a little bit of scratch while you're doing it, and put some stuff away. What's the furthest you've gone for a gig?
The furthest? Oh, that's a good question. Well, last year in February, I went to Kansas City with Maggie's Wake. Yeah, that was fun. And this year, fingers crossed, we're going to be off to Montreal. We'll do it again.
Okay. Big festival or just kind of just?
Well, same festival, just in Montreal this time. Kansas City's probably the furthest I've gone for a gig. Yeah. Like I've driven down to Tennessee just as a tourist. Sat in, right, but that doesn't count. I didn't make money.
That's a tough call.
I paid them. I tipped them to go up and play, right? So and that was fun, but for actually like hauling my bass around and getting to a gig, probably Kansas City, which was super cool. Super cool city, by the way. Definitely go check that out. City of Fountains.
City of Fountains, of all things.
Yeah, of all things. They got a lot of fountains here, man. I don't know. But that's probably the furthest I've traveled for it. but going to the States is not super surreal for me because I grew up in Windsor, so hopping the border a lot, was pretty common.
Yeah.
But Kansas is a bit of a car ride.
Oh yeah,
It's like 9 hours or something.
Midwest, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my geography, United States geography is not very good, but
Center, man.
yeah,
Center
right,
of the
right
country.
in middle. Yeah. So one of the things that I'm doing here on this particular show is try to understand how it is that you put together some work. I see you on Instagram all the time.
Sure.
You're very good with putting up and practicing. That's one thing that I'm really particularly bad with is putting my stuff out on Front Street. You know what I mean? Like I'll do it, but begrudgingly, because what's that old meme? They can't if you don't put it out there, right? They won't,
they have no idea, man. Yeah.
Can't criticize if you don't put it out there. So, that's tough. But I see you all the time, just jamming, and putting it out there. So that's fun. So what does it take for Andrew Kosty to get up in the morning and practice and do that and put yourself out there? And where's that come from? Like, is it you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to overtalk it.
No, good
Please.
question. That's a good way of phrasing, I think, or asking that question. What motivates me to practice? First off, probably the enjoyment of the instrument.
Okay.
That's easy. I think if you enjoy something you do, you're probably going to want to practice it or do it more. And especially something like music, because I almost group it in the same category as like physical activity. If you really enjoy physical activity, these are things that are good for you, right?
Yeah.
And music, I don't think there's anything, but within reason, anything to an extreme is bad. But like music, like you can practice a lot, and it's not going to hurt you really. It's actually going to make you better.
Yeah.
So the enjoyment of the instrument is good, and learning to get better every day is something I really enjoy. Something that I like really sort of cherish deeply about music. This is something that gets me out of bed every day, or makes me want to play better, is sort of how we use music as a tool, I guess, to help people or help others, or kids in particular, like when I'm instructing them, or even some of my own students. I talk to them about, like, it's not so much just like, okay, we need to like learn this song, or we need to learn these notes in a certain order so we can play them. Like, we're trying to teach kids, these skills, like, discipline and accountability, teamwork, camaraderie, all these things that you can kind of learn. It's not unique to music. You can learn them from a lot of things, but music is a great atmosphere to do it because you're so vulnerable. Especially when you're learning an instrument. Because you sound bad in front of your peers.
Yes, you do. And
you all sound bad in front of each other. And maybe one kid is a little bit better, but but you're really all kind of in that same level, and it takes a lot of that, like, ego out of it, at least when you're starting as a student. That can creep in later, and that's a whole other thing. But when you're starting, those skills, those tactile skills I was talking about learning, that's what's really important to me about it. And that's also sort of one of those things that helped me decide how I wanted to go about if I wanted to be a full-time player or not. Because when those things started to disappear from what it was I was doing, when I was just gigging full-time and just taking gigs, I wasn't getting those things out of it. I wasn't really getting like the camaraderie. I really wasn't getting the I shouldn't say accountability. I was getting kind of, really I wasn't actually. Like there's some gigs I could show up to, I thinking, or I could audibly, like, consciously play a wrong note and the audience wouldn't know. And I was like, okay, well, there's no accountability and nobody cares, right? Like, if I play this right or wrong, what am I doing here,
Okay.
And that's different, right? If you got to get paid, you got to put a smile on your face and play. I respect anyone who can do that. But for me, it was like, that's not what this is about. And that's basically what it is, those skills, and trying to get people, really, I guess, kids again in high school, like I work with high school students, really trying to get them to decide to choose to be better at something, or take some pride in their work. That's a huge one.
At the very least, right?
Take a bit of pride in your work, enjoy what it is you're doing, and want to get better at it. Because that's not something that, like, that mindset is not something that you need to come from in a very privileged place. We're all privileged in different senses, right? You get different instruments, and you may have the luxury of practicing more or whatever, but to decide that you want to get better, that doesn't cost anything. You just have to choose, right? And it's hard. I get it's hard for some people, but through music, I can at least demonstrate to these students that when you do decide you want to make that choice, look how awesome it is, right? Like, look how good you can become at this. Look how fun it is, and all of a sudden you got something that you want to practice. You want to get better at, right? And indifference that's dangerous. I think there's a famous quote. I'm just realizing now, one of my favorite quotes in school. I don't even know who it's by, and this is bad.
Okay, we're gonna look it up.
Yeah, we're gonna look it up.
We'll flash it on the screen or something.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like art's greatest enemy is ignorance. And I'm like, that's true, man. If you don't care, especially with students and kids, like if you don't care about what it is you're doing, then I'm like, well, you know, we've kind of failed here. Like we're failing. We're missing a lesson. So
yeah, and at that point you realize that are you chasing good after bad? Because if you're not interested in it, you can't force someone into. I mean, it's difficult. I'm sure you probably can, but you can't force someone into loving something.
No.
And if you want somebody to really get good at something, as you say, there's a certain level of love that needs to be there, or else you're just going through the method, right?
Yeah.
It's, the difference of putting in your time versus showing up first, leaving last. Right? So good, Andrew. I love having you on the show. It's so easy to
you
talk
just keep
to.
talking, man.
So much easier. I only have a half an hour, so we'll figure something out. But is there anything else that you'd like to follow up on, or anything? You got a gig you want to? Keeping in mind this isn't going on until September, so I don't.
Yeah.
Let's maybe we don't do that. But
my next gigs are. Geez, I don't know. They're not for a while, but they're in London. I've been playing in Ottawa for a bit coming up, and then Montreal. But yeah, I don't know. Just if you're in London, check out Maggie's Wake. That's the band I play with. If you want to come see me, check out Jeremy Fox. He's great. He's always playing with Ken Palmer. Ken Palmer's playing guitar. These are just some, real good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, that's what you're here for.
Check out, man. Yeah, if you can. Yeah. Those guys were great. Super.
Kosty. Super. Another thing. So look, next time we'll have you on. I want to have you on and do some music.
Sure. Yeah, I'll play next time.
Yeah. We'll absolutely bring him on. The instrument came, but it is just too warm today. We're in that heat dome right now, and it's not a good time. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.